Part 131. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1301. Chapter 1301 Heartache. Yu Lingfeng did not answer Rong Ci directly, but took out a small white pill from somewhere and handed it to Rong Ci. Here is this for you. You swallow this tomorrow morning. He will let you. It's like having a heart attack, it's painful, but it's not going to kill you. Rong Ci took the small white pill and stared at it for a long time. Rong Ci raised his head and asked Yu Lingfeng calmly, "Isn't this thing bought from a pharmacy?" Yu Lingfeng turned his face sideways and answered Rong Ci word by word, "Can't buy it?" This is what he did. What's more, most medicines are used to save people, but this one is just the opposite. Rong Ci looked at the man shrouded in darkness. He didn't know whether it was because of the night that Yu Lingfeng could not see his outline clearly, or whether it was because Rong Ci had never seen Yu Lingfeng clearly from the beginning to the end. This person. Who are you? Yu Lingfeng looked at the night and did not answer. Rong Ci's face became even more ugly, and he said to himself, "Before I met you, I never realized that this world could be so wonderful. I have to go now." Yu Lingfeng ignored Rong Ci's words, but turned around and walked into the darkness. Rong Ci watched Yu Lingfeng's figure sink into the darkness of the room and then disappear. Rong Ci turned on the light the next second, and by this time, Yu Lingfeng was no longer there. Rong Ci's pupils dilated instantly, and for a moment, he was so surprised that he didn't know what to say. Rong Ci held the pill in his hand tighter. Rong Ci spread his hand and looked at the small pill. If it weren't for this little thing, he would have thought that he was just dreaming, and that Yu Lingfeng just now was just a figment of his mind. Now it seems that everything is true. Yu Lingfeng is a man who surprises or scares himself at any time. The next day, after Rong Ci finished breakfast, he went to the water dispenser to get a glass of water. At this time, Lan 11 was still quietly sitting at the dining table enjoying her breakfast without knowing it. On the other side, not far away, Rong Ci had already put the small pills into his mouth along with the warm water. Rong Ci thought that it would take at least a few minutes for the medicine to take effect, but who knew that as soon as he swallowed the pill, he felt a suffocating pain in his heart. Rong Ci collapsed to the ground in an instant, and the cup fell to the ground with a crisp shattering sound. Rong Ci held onto the wall. At this moment, he felt that even if he took a breath of air, his heart would shrink with pain. After Lan 11 heard the noise, he rushed over immediately and saw Rong Ci curled up on the ground, clutching his chest and sweating profusely in pain. Lan 11 panicked immediately, knelt down and patted Rong Ci's face, causing Rong Ci to break out in a cold sweat. "Rong Ci, what's wrong with you? Rong Ci, what's wrong with you?" Lan 11 began to check Rong Ci's facial features in a panic and looked at Rong Ci's eyes. Heart aches." When Rong Ci said these words, he felt weak. Lan 11 was confused for a moment, then "Where is your medicine? Rong Ci has a heart disease. Why didn't she know?" No medicine. No medicine?" Lan 11 quickly went back to get her cell phone, called the emergency number, and then quickly ran over, lifted Rong Ci up, and placed her on the soft sofa, trying to make him feel better. "Rong Ci, hold on, I'll help you find some pain relief medicine." Lan 11 had tears in her eyes when she said this. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1302. Chapter 1302 The Biggest Informant. Lan 11 is a doctor. She shouldn't panic when encountering such a situation, but because the other party is Rong Ci, she can't see anything happening to Rong Ci. Seeing Rong Ci's heartbreaking pain, Lan 11 completely forgot what he should do. Lan 11 found Blue Demon Queen's traditional painkillers and fed them to Rong Ci, and Rong Ci gradually got better. At this moment, The shirt on Rong Si was soaked with sweat. Rong Si's lips turned white, and his whole person seemed to have been separated from his soul, without any aura of the past. Lan 11 sat next to Rong Si, feeling heartbroken. She wanted to do something, but she could only watch Rong Si in such pain but was helpless. Rong Si fell into a drowsy state and fell asleep. Not long after, the ambulance arrived. Lan 11 held Rong Si's hand tightly the whole way, for fear that something would happen to him. After arriving at the hospital, Rong Si was sent directly to the emergency room. Lan 11 sat in front of the emergency room in panic, not knowing what to do. Her mind was like a ball of mush at the moment. Lan 11 liked to chew her fingers when she was nervous, but she chewed all 10 fingers, and Rong Si still didn't come out. Lan 11 took Rong Si's phone and slid it to unlock it. Rong Si's phone had no password. Lan 11 opened the communication and sent a group message. At this moment, she should tell Rong Si's family about this matter. After Yu Lingfeng received the news, he raised his head and said calmly to everyone, "Let's go to the hospital." Good. Xia Ying stood up and left with Yu Lingfeng, followed by 11 Ju. Grandpa Jun and Qian Yanjiu stayed behind. Although Grandpa Jun had a cold face and said nothing from beginning to end, he was actually very worried in his heart. What if this plan didn't succeed? What if Junde was not deceived? When Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying arrived, Lan 11 was the only one in front of the emergency room. Xia Ying was surprised when she saw Lan 11. She had never met that girl before. Who was she? And judging from her extremely nervous look, she must have a good relationship with Rong Si. Moreover, she was the first person to appear here, or in other words, she was the one who informed everyone. Because Xia Ying had already seen that Lan 11 was holding Rong Si's mobile phone. Xia Ying raised her head and looked at Yu Lingfeng beside her with confusion. Rong Si's childhood friend was also a child adopted by Jun De, and was later taken away by his adoptive parents. When Yu Lingfeng went to find Rong Si yesterday, he discovered that there was an extra woman in Rong Si's family, so I spent some time last night to find out the details of this woman one by one. The suspicion on Xia Ying's face still lingers. The question in Xia Ying's mind is, why was this girl the first to know that something happened to Rong Si? She is now living in Rong Si's house. If my guess is correct, he should be Jun Dian's biggest spy next to Rong Si. As soon as Yu Lingfeng finished speaking, Lan 11 heard footsteps and looked up at Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng. Her eyes lit up, she stood up and walked towards them. "Are you Rong Kai's friends?" Lan 11's eyes were red, and her tears had not stopped until now. When she mentioned the word Rong Si, she unconsciously shed 2 more tears. Yu Lingfeng responded coldly. Xia Ying's focus is still on what Yu Lingfeng said just now. Is this girl living in Rong Si's house? Why do you live in Rong Si's house? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1303. Chapter 1303. I won't let Rong Si die. My name is Lan 11, and I am Rong Si's friend. Even though he was overly sad, Lan 11 still tried his best to maintain his politeness and tried to talk to Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying with a smile, although the smile was very bitter. I am. Just as Xia Ying was about to introduce herself, Lan 11 interrupted, "Of course I know who you are." Lan 11 smiled, now in China, who doesn't know Xia Ying? When talking about Xia Ying, she will naturally think of her incomparably handsome fiancé Yu Lingfeng. Xia Ying smiled politely, and then looked at the emergency room behind Lan 11. The lights were still on. What's wrong with Rong Kai? Heart attack, but he has never had a history of heart disease. This is his first attack. It really scared me just now. While Xia Ying and the others were talking, The doctor came over from the emergency room, and Lan 11 quickly approached him to ask about the situation. The doctor said that Rong Si's heart is now very weak and cannot bear any major stimulation. At the same time, the doctor also said that he may not have much time left. The doctor's last words really frightened Lan 11, and Lan 11's heart suddenly collapsed. "Doctor, please tell me clearly, what does it mean that time is running out? He is still so young, and his medical skills are so advanced now. Can't heart disease be cured by surgery? Why can't Ronkai cure it? Why?" Lan 11 lost control of her emotions and suddenly started yelling at the doctor like a shrew. The doctor was helpless and had to explain to her that Rong Si's case was too special. Judging from his appearance, it looked like it was congenital or acquired. His symptoms were extremely weird, and Lan 11 also said that Rong Si had never had any illness before. So, why did the disease suddenly occur? They haven't figured it out yet. The only thing they know is that Rong Si's heart is very weak, so weak that it seems like it will stop beating in the next second. No matter how hard they try, it won't help. Lan 11, don't be like this. Xia Ying restrained the crazy Lan 11 to prevent her from doing anything extraordinary. Yu Lingfeng looked at Lan 11's performance with an expressionless expression throughout. Her behavior is not like that of an ordinary friend. Could it be that Lan 11 has any interest in Rong Si? That must be true. What does Yundi mean, find someone who loves Rong Si deeply to monitor Rong Si? Isn't he afraid that Lan 11 has any selfish motives for this? That man is really hard to guess. It took Lan 11 a long time to calm down, although it was only superficial. She kept crying on Xia Ying's shoulder, and a large piece of Xia Ying's clothes was wet with her tears. Xia Ying has been comforting her. "I won't let Rong Si die." At this moment, Lan 11 suddenly said this. Yu Lingfeng glanced at her with a determined look, and it didn't look like he was joking. "What can you do?" Yu Lingfeng asked. Lan 11 did not answer, but bit her lips tightly, as if she had some firm belief in her heart. No matter what method she uses, she will not let Rong Si die like this. When Xia Ying and the others went over to visit Rong Si was unconscious. Because the doctor said Rong Si needed to rest, they could only look at him through the glass window. Lan 11 kept crying and couldn't stop it. Xia Ying looked at Yu Lingfeng with an expression of admiration. If she hadn't known in advance that this was Yu Lingfeng's fault, Xia Ying would have been deceived by Rong Si's appearance. He looked really weak, like a seriously ill patient. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1304. Chapter 1304. As expected. The news that Rong Si was seriously ill and hospitalized was already known within the Jun family, and Jun Chenai's parents were the first to arrive. When the father and mother saw Rong Si's pale face, their hearts ached. Jun's mother's eyes suddenly turned red, and she grabbed the doctor and kept asking about Jun Chenai's condition. Although Jun's father didn't show anything on his face, the eyes he stared at Rong Si made people feel distressed. Jun's father is a person who doesn't like to show his emotions, especially negative emotions. When Jun Chen escaped from something like that, he didn't show much emotion. It was only after he saw through the faces of the Jun family that he rarely got angry. What happened to Rong Si? Jun's father asked Yu Lingfeng beside him. At this time, they were already in Rong Si's ward. Rong Si was lying on the bed unconscious, his face was so pale that he looked as scary as a vampire in the middle of the night. The doctor couldn't tell clearly. He said it was a special situation. The doctor also said that Rong Si might not be able to survive. When Jun's father heard the last half of Yu Lingfeng's words, his eyebrows twitched. Xia Ying could see every bit of the grief and sorrow in her eyes. How is it possible? This child Rong Kai has been in good health since he was a child. Rong Si has never had any serious illness since she was a child, and she rarely even has colds or fevers. His physique was always very strong, and he later became an agent. After receiving so many years of agent training, his physique should be stronger. How could he have heart failure? How could be? Junfu said he could not accept it. Yu Lingfeng patted Jun's father on the shoulder and comforted him in a low voice. Rong Ci is blessed with great fortune, and he will definitely be able to get through it. Jun's father pursed his lips tightly and said nothing more. After seeing Lan 11, he looked at her a few more times, and then asked Yu Lingfeng, "Who is she?" Father Jun saw Lan 11's expression of sadness, and it seemed that it must have something to do with Rong Ci. Moreover, the relationship is not too shallow. Rong Ci's friend, she sent Rong Ci to the hospital. After Jun's father heard what Yu Lingfeng said, he walked towards Lan 11 and said thank you for sending Rong Ci to the hospital. Lan 11 blushed and choked with sobs as she said you're welcome. After a while, the second uncle and the third uncle came over. Seeing Rong Ci's appearance, they all asked each other a few questions, and then started to lament, real or fake. At about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the crowd gradually dispersed. Lan 11 said that she would stay with Rong Ci, and everyone acquiesced to her behavior. Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying also left, and until the end, the uncle did not show up. However, all this was within Yu Lingfeng's expectation. He knew that his uncle would not show up, and he also guessed that he would definitely come over later. Yu Lingfeng is fully confident about this. On the road, Yu Lingfeng turned her head and glanced at the bracelet on Xia Ying's hand. Zioba. Xia Ying gave Yu Lingfeng a sweet smile. It's been taken care of. Zioba is with Rong Ci. Yu Lingfeng nodded and the car drove away. At this time, not long after Yu Lingfeng and the others left, another black Bentley drove up and stopped at the entrance of the hospital. Then a tall and straight man in a black suit walked out and looked up at the hospital. Then he walked towards the hospital with a straight face. Behind him, followed a large group of men in suits and ties. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1305. Chapter 1305 Many Agencies. When will Rong Ci wake up? Xia Ying thought of something again and turned to look at Yu Lingfeng. Although everything seems to be proceeding in an orderly manner according to Yu Lingfeng's arrangement, how does Yu Lingfeng grasp the opportunity for Rong Ci to wake up? Or, during the period when Rong Ci was unconscious, did Yu Lingfeng have other plans? He won't wake up until I wake him up. Yu Lingfeng said this meaningfully, looking at the busy traffic outside, thoughtfully. Then when do you plan to let Rong Ci wake up? Yu Lingfeng turned around and looked at Xia Ying, her eyes sparkling with light. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's go to the Shadow Hunters' headquarters now. Xia Ying's eyes widened rapidly. Now, didn't Jian Yanjiu say? Xia Ying was halfway through her words when she suddenly understood what Yu Lingfeng meant. Something happened to Rong Ci, and Junde would go to the hospital later. The tiger was not on the mountain, and those monkeys were no match for Yu Lingfeng. But do you know where it is? Do you want to call Jian Yanjiu together? No need, he will only cause trouble if he goes. Yu Lingfeng said with a cold face. At this time, 11 Ju silently added, last time Jian Yanjiu went to the Shadow Hunter to find Christina, the master installed monitoring equipment on him, so the master only needs to follow the route that Jian Yanjiu has taken to find the Shadow Hunter's headquarters. 11 Ju said as he drove the car in front. Xia Ying was so surprised that she was completely speechless, so Yu Lingfeng asked Jian Yanjiu to find Christina on purpose last time. Yu Lingfeng knew that Jian Yanjiu would definitely fail in the past, but at least he could still find where the Shadow Hunter's headquarters was. Yu Lingfeng just used this to find out the location of the Shadow Hunter's headquarters. As for Jian Yanjiu, he is a pathfinder from beginning to end. Xia Ying thought that if Qian Yanjiu knew about Yu Lingfeng's little calculations, he would go crazy. 11 Ju quickly found the Shadow Hunter's headquarters according to the address given to him by Yu Lingfeng. Looking outside, there is nothing, just a lush forest, but underneath the woods, there are huge secrets. Master, but we don't know where the agency is. After Zihu tried several methods but failed to activate the mechanism, he had no choice but to turn around and look at Yu Lingfeng. Careful dash. Yu Lingfeng suddenly shouted to 11 Ju, and 11 Ju immediately stood there and did not dare to move. There are mechanisms everywhere here. If you are not careful, you will die without any body parts. Yu Lingfeng had a livid face and spoke to 11 Ju very seriously. Then, with his right hand, he naturally pulled Xia Ying towards him, making Xia Ying follow his footsteps. Yu Lingfeng suddenly bent down again, picked up a stone from the ground, and threw it in a random direction. Then 11 Ju saw helplessly that the moment the stone fell to the ground, a large hole suddenly opened in the ground. There are countless steel needles, and there are many animal remains around the steel needles. In less than 10 seconds, the hole in the ground was covered again. The surface was quiet and nothing could be seen. Zihu took a sharp breath, feeling lucky that he had been messing around just now and didn't have any luck in stepping on the trap. Master, are they going too far? If someone comes here accidentally. There are few people nearby, and usually no one would come here. Yu Lingfeng said indifferently. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1306. Chapter 1306, Be Prepared. Master, what should we do? Junde will be back soon. Don't panic. Yu Lingfeng's face darkened, and he looked around carefully. It was already evening, and the light in the woods was dim, making it increasingly difficult to see clearly. Since this place is full of institutions, let me explain that there may only be one or a few paths for them to leave each time. The only thing we have to do now is to carefully observe the lines on the ground. Places where people walk a lot, natural, and other places are different. As Yu Lingfeng said this, he already stared at a place and took a step forward. Xia Ying followed closely behind Yu Lingfeng, and 11 Ju also followed. Qian Yanjiu and the others said last time that the shadow hunters were heavily guarded, which means they have entered. Since they have already entered, we can naturally enter too. Yu Lingfeng said as he carefully explored the underground road. Xia Ying held Yu Lingfeng's hand tightly, holding her breath with every step she took, not daring to take a steady step. Noticing the abnormality of the person next to him, Yu Lingfeng turned his face slightly and said gently to Xia Ying, "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Xia Ying met Yu Lingfeng's gaze, nodded, took a deep breath, and suddenly felt safe in her heart. About 15 minutes later, Yu Lingfeng and the others had entered the Shadow Hunter's passage. Qian Yanjiu was right. There were indeed guards everywhere. They only dared to stand at the entrance, but they could not move at all. There are guards on the 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside, as well as wolves, dogs, poisonous snakes, and other deadly things. As expected, this place is not so easy to enter. Yu Lingfeng turned sideways and looked at 11 Ju. 11 Ju met Yu Lingfeng's eyes. Without Yu Lingfeng opening his mouth, 11 Ju had already understood the meaning of Yu Lingfeng's expression. Then he nodded firmly and said, made an okay gesture. Before Xia Ying could understand what they were communicating, 11 Ju had already walked up to her, grabbed Xia Ying's arm, and was about to take her away. Xia Ying took Yu Lingfeng's hand, frowned, and shook her head at Yu Lingfeng reluctantly. She didn't want to leave. It was too dangerous here. Yu Lingfeng was here alone, and she didn't feel at ease at all. Yu Lingfeng patted his chest and made a gesture to reassure Xia Ying. But how can Xia Ying feel at ease? The current Yu Lingfeng is not the former Yu Lingfeng. There is something wrong with his energy field now, and his superpowers are in chaos. What if something happens inside? He was alone, isolated and helpless. Xia Ying couldn't imagine that scene. But Yu Lingfeng was resolute and broke away from Xia Ying's hand, turning his head without any hesitation and not looking at Xia Ying. He can't let her get hurt. This is just the entrance. You can imagine how dangerous it is inside. 11 Ju forced Xia Ying away. 11 Ju was too strong and Xia Ying couldn't get away at all, so she could only watch as he and Yu Lingfeng drifted away. Xia Ying had no choice but to communicate telepathically with her own goo worms. The little goo worms sensed Xia Ying's thoughts and all flew out. After looking at Xia Ying reluctantly, they flew towards Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng was startled by the sudden appearance of the little goo insects, and then immediately realized that Xia Ying must have asked them to come to help him. The little bugs all flew into the pockets of Yu Lingfeng's coat and hid in them. They were all ready and waiting until they were needed. They would come out when they were needed. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1307. Chapter 1307, Fierce Beast. When Jundi rushed to the hospital, Lan 11 was the only one left in the ward. Jundi's sudden appearance made Lan 11 startled. The door to the ward was suddenly opened, and what came into view was the man who was so mysterious that it was difficult to guess. Lan 11's red eyes were particularly eye-catching in the blue and white ward. Jundi just glanced at her, and then his eyes stayed on Rong Si on the hospital bed. Jundi opened her long legs and walked towards Rong Si. As she got closer, the frown on Jundi's face deepened. He heard from the people in the Jun family that Rong Si had an accident because of a heart attack. Not to mention that their family had no history of heart disease and was fine. How could he have a heart attack and there was no way to treat it? Jun Chenyi's aunt, who believes in who lives abroad, has been going to church to repent more frequently recently after learning about Rong Si. She said that the Jun family must have angered some god, so one or two troubles happened one after another. First, Jun Chenyi was imprisoned, and then Jun Xianyan was seriously injured in a car accident, and is still recuperating. At this time, something happened to Rong Si again, and it was really a troubled time. Jundi turned his face sideways and looked at the heart meter on the side. Rong Si's heartbeat was very weak. Jundi said to the person behind him with a cold face, "Get Rong Kai's attending doctor over to me within 10 minutes. Yes, boss. The attending doctor, who had already gone home from get off work, was suddenly packed into the car by a group of tall and strong bodyguards. Just when he was tremblingly thinking about whether he was going to be silenced and whether those people were rich or dead, he found that the place they went to seemed very familiar. Isn't this the route he takes to get off work every day? Where are you taking me? When the doctor said this, his tongue trembled and he bit him, which hurt a lot. The mouth was immediately filled with the smell of blood. The doctor frowned in disgust, but he did not dare to ask if they had a garbage bag, so he had to keep the mouthful in his mouth, which was extremely uncomfortable. What was even more uncomfortable was that the group of people seemed to have not heard what he said. They were all as dumb as a stick, saying nothing and showing no expression on their faces. The doctor was brought into his office and forced to sit on a sofa chair. The group of people who kidnapped him were sitting around him. The doctor was completely confused. What the hell? What are they going to do? What exactly is this doing? Before he could realize what was going on, Jundi walked towards him. The circle of people surrounding the doctor immediately walked behind Jundi in an orderly manner. Jundi's strong aura, and the look on his face that was clearly smiling, but made people feel that there was something dangerous in the smile, made the doctor swallow his saliva. Then a very unpleasant smell of blood came from his throat, and he still couldn't spit it out. "I'm very sorry, Dr. Luo Junde said with a half smile, I just want to know about Rong Ci, what's going on with his illness, and whether he can be saved. Also, if you dare lie to me a word, you know what will happen. Junde's final threat. The sudden change in expression caught Dr. Luo off guard. If Junde was smiling with a knife in his face before, now he is a complete and savage beast. Happy National Day. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1308. Chapter 1308 Psychic Strike. Oh, it's really ridiculous. Without any genetic history or warning, you tell a strong man that he has a serious heart disease and is very likely to die from heart failure? Are you kidding me, Dr. Luo? After Dr. Luo explained Rong Ci's condition to Junde sneered disdainfully, with every slight expression on his face revealing disbelief. Dr. Luo wiped the fine beads of sweat on his face. For a moment, he didn't know how to convince Junde to believe his own rhetoric. Let alone Junde, it was hard for the doctors themselves to believe it, but the result was like this, what could he do? Because of this special case of Rong Ci, the doctors in their department all met to discuss it. Everyone found it very difficult and everyone found it unbelievable, but it had already happened. There is no easy solution at the moment. They can only take one step at a time and stabilize Rong Ci's condition first. As for the rest, they can't make any guarantees now. But judging from the current situation, Rong Ci is indeed in danger. Dr. Luo, are you sure you didn't accept money from someone and then deliberately deceive me? Junde's sudden words frightened Dr. Luo. The doctor is kind-hearted, how dare I do such a thing? If you don't believe the diagnosis results of our hospital, you can transfer him to another hospital. Also, the patient has been unconscious since being admitted to the hospital, and there is no sign of opening his eyes until now. Hopefully he can get through it. Every word of Dr. Luo's words was like a knife, digging into Junde's heart. That was the only flesh and blood relative he had in the world, the only woman he loved deeply in his life. How could he bear to watch him leave first? He hasn't heard him call him father properly. They haven't recognized each other as father and son yet. Why is the world always so cruel to him? Why does the person he cares about always stay away from him without exception? Junde resisted the turbulent emotions in her heart and turned around, wanting to take a good look at Rong Ci again. How long has it been since he took a good look at Rong Ci? I heard from the patient's friends in the afternoon that the patient had suffered a severe mental shock some time ago and had been depressed and in a low mood. I think it is also inseparable from this incident. Did you notice it during that time? Something was wrong with him. I thought maybe that incident had hit him too hard, and his body couldn't bear it in the long run. Heart disease itself is closely related to his mood. Dr. Luo's sudden words made Junde stop suddenly. Dr. Luo means that Rong Ci suffered a heart attack because Fanyan's departure had such a huge impact? Junde's lowered hands clenched into fists, his teeth clenched, and he felt a tearing pain in his heart. So, everything in Rong Ci today was caused by him. Dr. Luo saw that Junde suddenly stopped and couldn't leave. He stood there for a long time and didn't see any intention of leaving. Dr. Luo was a little panicked. Did he say something wrong and make Junde unhappy? But this is also a reasonable speculation for him. After all, apart from the shock of this incident, there are no other triggering factors at all, and this incident was told to him by Yu Lingfeng in the afternoon. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1309. Chapter 1309 I Can't Do It. While Dr. Luo was dazed, Junde spoke, with a cold voice and a harsh tone, Then if the person who had hit him by leaving him came back, would he slowly get better? This also depends on the situation. If you suddenly tell him the good news, he may be too excited and some unexpected accidents may happen. At present, we still have to wait until he wakes up and his heart can withstand better before making a decision. Do you want to tell him? Jun De-tai's face was livid. He didn't answer. He opened the door and went out. When Jun De returned to the ward, Lan 11 was still there, guarding Rong Si motionlessly. Jun De glanced at her indifferently. Is there anything unusual about Rong Si recently? Jun De spoke coldly. No. Lan 11's voice was a little hoarse when she spoke. After crying for so long, she was already exhausted both physically and mentally. She was really afraid that something might happen to Rong Si, very scared. If she could, she would rather be the one lying here. Has he mentioned Sanskrit to you? In other words, do you think Rong Si has let go of Sanskrit's departure, or has he not let go? Lan 11 quickly shook his head. Thinking of the scene in the supermarket, the sadness on his face deepened. Every little thing in life can remind Rong Si of Fanyan. He still likes her and is still waiting for his return. Jun De's face became more and more serious. Lan 11 continued, the last time Rong Si was injured, I was always by his side to take care of him. During that time, Rong Si's medicine needed to be changed every 3 hours. Sometimes I would go over to change his medicine at night, and I was heartbroken when I heard him shouting Sanskrit's name. When I woke up, tears were streaming down my face. Jun De took a deep breath and said, he shouldn't be like this. Being so emotional will not accomplish anything big in the future. However, before Jun De finished speaking, he suddenly thought of himself. When he asked Rong Si to let go of everything, he was just as stubborn as Rong Si. More than 20 years have passed, and no one else has entered his heart. Even thinking about her now, he still missed and loved her so much. I sometimes wonder if I am wrong. Shouldn't I expect that I can replace Sanskrit's position in Rong Si's heart from the beginning? I can't do it at all. In fact, I can't even reach Rong Si's heart. I can't get in, let alone occupy a place in his heart. As Lan 11 spoke, she silently wiped the tears around her eyes. Jun De never spoke, but when he looked at Rong Si, he felt a lot more guilty and intolerable. Boss, I beg you, please let Sanskrit come back. I don't want to continue like this. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Lan 11's crying voice was particularly harsh in the silent ward, and Jun De felt very irritable when he heard it. He knew clearly in his heart that the person Rong Si liked was Fanyan, but he kept interfering in Rong Si's emotional life. He hoped that Rong Si and Lan 11 would be together, and he felt that Lan 11 was a good match for Rong Si. As for the cold-blooded and ruthless Fanyan, all she brought to Rong Si was disaster from the beginning, and Fanyan was too complicated, and even he didn't fully understand what kind of person she was. Even if I let Fanyan come back now, I will still leave in the future. It is her own decision to leave Rongkai. She does not want to bring harm to Rongkai. She still has her own things to do. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1310. Chapter 1310. That's not love at all. But I don't understand, since they obviously like each other, why Fanyan doesn't want to be with Rong Si. Rong Si likes her so much, and Rong Si can't forget her at all. Does she want Rong Si to be depressed because she will never marry? Lan 11 suddenly became emotional. I just don't understand the so-called great love, which is not love at all. You impose your own moral ideas on others and hurt your own love and love in the name of true love. My own behavior is extremely stupid. Jun De's face was heavy and he just said lightly, Lan 11, calm down. I can't calm down. The reason why Rong Si is like this today is all because of Fanyan. If it weren't for her leaving without saying a word, Wrong Ci wouldn't be so sad because he misses her. Now he still has it. Heart disease. She said it was for Wrong Ci's safety and good, but what did she bring to Wrong Ci? Lan 11's consciousness has completely collapsed, and she is going crazy alone, hysterical in the ward. She had been thinking about it all afternoon today, and she really couldn't imagine the scene of Wrong Ci leaving. She doesn't have to be with Wrong Ci, but Wrong Ci must live well. Some things are not as simple as you think. June decide, Fanyin doesn't want to be with Wrong Ci, but she knows this is impossible. As long as you don't stop it, why can't they be together? Lan 11 Jundi's tone became colder and he stared at Lan 11, I have said before, it's Fanyin who doesn't want to be with Wrong Ci. As for me arranging for you to be with Wrong Ci, it's just because of you. I am obsessed with Wrong Ci, and I think you are the most suitable candidate for Wrong Ci. I want to intervene in Wrong Ci's choice, but I can't decide, and it's not my decision. Lan 11 stopped talking and just lowered her head sadly, but in her heart, she still attributed all this to Fanyin's irresponsibility. Relationships are a matter between two people, why should it end when she says it's over? She obviously still likes Wrong Ci, but Lan 11 just doesn't understand what other big deal could be that prevents her from being with Wrong Ci. Lan 11 always felt that Fanyin was too cowardly. No matter what happened, as long as two people were together, they would be able to get through it. Yu Lingfeng relied on the little goo insects that Xia Ying left for him to easily know the location of Christina. In addition, his superpower was relatively stable at critical times and did not hold him back, so he was able to do so without being noticed. And found the cell where Christina's family was held. The 3 floors outside are guarded by personnel. The light inside is very dim and the inside of the cell is dank. It is simply not a place for people to stay. Christina was shocked when Yu Lingfeng suddenly appeared. If Yu Lingfeng hadn't covered her mouth in time and silenced Christina's parents, they wouldn't have made any noise. Yu Lingfeng breathed a sigh of relief before letting go of his hand. At this moment, Christina felt even more incredible. The speed at which Yu Lingfeng just ran over and blocked her mouth was a bit shocking, right? Christina had met Yu Lingfeng before and knew that he was Jun Chenai's friend, but she didn't know whether he was a friend or an enemy when he came here this time. After all, Jun Chenai was in prison and she was an accomplice. End of this chapter.